Hey guys, so today we are going to see how we can create custom MLOs using Sollumz Blender. I'm going to follow the official Sollumz wiki, so I'll just put it down in the description. So if you want to follow that, the steps are going to be pretty similar, which I'm going to follow. But in case you want to follow the text tutorial or want to reference other parts like creating YBN and YDRs, so you can go over here. And I'm gonna be following a very similar pattern according to Toby's tutorial. So just if you wanna in case cross check and follow along with the 3ds Max, it's gonna be around same tutorial. So let's just hop into a CodeWalker, enable our toolbar, and let's find a building. So over here, coming to this, we can just enable our selection. Make sure the selection is set to entity, and then we can just try to select our shell. Let's just move it up, and this is our shell. So once you have selected your shell properly in the CodeWalker, head over to the selection tab, copy the name, and then we can over here select the tools and launch the RPF Explorer. Then we can just search the name over here, and here is our YDR. So we can just preview it, and now we can just right click and select export XML. I'm just gonna put it in this folder, Sollumz MLO tutorial folder. Just select the folder. Another thing which we want to do is when we head over to the entities tab, over here we have our YMAP name. Just select the YMAP name, open the RPF Explorer, and just search the YMAP file and just export as XML. Save. Now what we want to do is select our collision. So over to the entities, change it to the collision. Now we can just select our collision box. So now if you just see and move the collision upwards, this is our first collision. So you can just copy the name, go back to RPF file explorer, paste the name and search. Just preview the collision once. This is our collision. So we can just right click, export XML. Now another thing is there are two types of collisions. A general collision made up of like a single box, and there are more finer collisions. So if you just select any smaller parts of collisions, you'll see that it has a different file name. Just copy it and just search it up too. And this is our more detailed collisions. So we can just use these collisions and export it. Right click, export XML, and just save it. We also want to remove the occlusions, but we'll just do that once we have imported our shell. For now, we can just close our CodeWalker and head over to our Blender. So this is my default scene. I'm just gonna delete everything, head over to the files, import, and CodeWalker XML. Now we can just import our YDR file first. Click on import CodeWalker XML. So this is our YDR. Let's import our collisions now. So this is our first collision file, import XML. And importing collisions might take a while, so just be patient. Once our first collision is done, we're just going to import our second collision file and import CodeWalker XML. Once we have imported our collision, in this file, we have our embedded collisions too. So for now, we're just going to delete the embedded collisions, since we actually already have our world collisions. So we can just delete this embedded collision file. And once we are done with that, we can first of all cut out our doors and windows. In this tutorial, I'm just gonna create a single room with a single door and a single window portal. But if you can get a single portal and a room correctly, you can just create as many rooms and portals you want. So let's just head over to our YDR selection, select a shell model, go to the tab, edit mode, and I'm just gonna select the faces. And now I'm just gonna select and remove, right click and click delete face. So now we have deleted our door face, as you can see. Similarly, we can delete our windows over here. So just select it, right click and delete face. We can do similar steps like deleting and selecting these windows, deleting this door and deleting these windows. But for this tutorial, one window portal, one door portal and a single room. Once we have made our cutouts, we can now make our MLO shell. So just Shift A, mesh, and we can just add a cube. So now we can just go to the tab mode, select our face. First of all, we're just gonna align our top face. Just select the top face. And then what we wanna do is head over to this magnet icon, select the drop down menu and select the vertex. And then we can just click on this magnet icon and enable the snapping tool. This will help it to align our faces with the vertices. So once we have selected our top face, select the move tool, and then we can just snap over here. Once we have snapped our top face, we can just select our left face and we can just align it to these windows. We can just go to wireframe mode over here. And then what we want to do is select and snap. Go to a rendered mode and just check it that it's not overlapping any faces. Seems to be fine. Similarly, we can just do our back face, go to the wireframe mode and just snap it. Go to the render tab and as you can see, it's overlapping the windows. Go back to the wireframe mode and select it as here. This is going to be fun and game, so let's just not bother with it. Similarly, we can just snap our right side face, just select our right face and go back to wireframe mode again and just snap. Seems to be fine. And now we can just align our first front face. And now we want to align it to these windows and the door. So we can just snap it to our door frame over here. Or we can just do it over here with our window. And it should automatically align, I guess. Should be fine. Or what we can do is just align it to the door over here, and then you can just align the faces of the window with our shell. So as you can see, these faces are extruding outwards. What we can do is we can either move these shell faces of the windows inside, or we can select our wall of the shell and move it according to the windows. You can just do it like this. It's going to be aligned with this window and it should be aligned with the door. Or if it's not, what we can do is exit out of our shell, select our exterior and go to the edit mode. Now what we can do is select these faces, and either we can delete these faces or we can just move these faces inwards. I'm just gonna delete these faces for now. Right click and delete. Select the faces, right click and delete. Similarly for these. And that should be fine, I guess. We can just select the drop down menu and go to the face orientation mode. And if you see all these red parts, then it means the back face is there. So it will just be culled out. We don't have to bother with that. But for precautions, you obviously need to align all the exteriors with the door frames and such. So just make sure to do it. I'm just going to disable the face orientation again. Now we can just exit out of our edit mode for the shell. And now we can just edit our MLO shell again. And now we can just align the floor face with our door. What we can do is just snap it up right over here. So now it's aligned with our bottom of the door. And once we have just snapped our faces and aligned it according to our doors and windows, we can cut out our doors and the shells and the window shells. So just go to the edge mode, select any edge of your MLO shell. So let's just select this bottom edge, right click and select loop cut and slide. The shortcut is Ctrl R. You select it and we can just hover and you'll see a highlighted line. You just click it and we can just snap it over to the edge. So it is aligned with our door over here. We can just repeat the similar process. Loop cut and slide. The shell is highlighted, the loop cuts are highlighted. Just click it and snap it over here. Make sure it's aligned properly. Just loop cut again, and now this time we're gonna do a horizontal cut and just snap it to the top. And now we can just go back to our face selection, select the door face, right click and delete. So now we have our face aligned with the door cut. So now we have our MLO shell face aligned with our exterior. Similarly, we can do the same thing for our window shell. Go back to the edge mode, select any part of the edge, right click, loop cut and slide, select a vertical cut and just make sure it's aligned properly. Snap it right over here. Do a similar thing again. Loop cut and slide, vertical face again and snap it. And for our horizontal cut once and snap it to the top. As you can see, we don't have our bottom edge over here. So we can just follow the similar process. Select loop cut and slide, make a horizontal cut and snap it to the bottom. Then go back to our face selection, select the face and delete it. So now we have our window and our door cutout for our MLO shell. Now what we want to do is flip our faces for our MLO shell. So if you just select the drop down over here and go to the face orientation mode, you'll see the exterior has blue faces and interior shell has our red faces inside. So what we want to do is select our MLO shell, go to the edit mode, make sure you run face selection mode, press A to select all the faces and then press Alt N and select flip. So all our blue faces for our MLO shell should be inside, and our red faces should be outside for our MLO shell. And for our exterior, or all the blue faces should be outside. And if we just hide our MLO shell, all the red faces should be inside. So just disable the face orientation mode again. And then we can just edit out. And everything is aligned properly. We can just give it a temporary texture for now. Let's say base color for now. We'll just change the texture later. And now what we're going to do is make collisions for our MLO shell. So if we just hide our exterior for a minute. So this is our MLO shell. Make sure that your MLO shell is located at 0, 0, and 0. So I have actually spawned the cube. The default cube was spawned at 0, 0, 0. And then we edited out the faces. So it's right now at 0. So if you just press N, go to the items tab and locations, and all the X, Y, and Z should be 0. So these are by default 0. Now what we're going to do is create collisions. So to create collisions, go to the Sollumz tool, select the collision tool, and create bounds. I'm just gonna disable the replace original and just click create bounds. And now if we just hide this, this is our new collision. So we can just rename it to, let's say, Sollumz MLO cool. And we can just rename our original shell to, let's say, Sollumz MLO shell. Now we have our collision and our shell. What we're going to do is first of all give a flag to our collision. So make sure you have selected the, let me just rescale it. Make sure you have selected the bound geometry BVH. Go to the flags preset and click apply flags preset. Now just go to our bound poly mesh, remove the default material if you have any, and over to the Sollumz panel, select the create collision material. Now we want to give a collision material, so let's just give it a concrete and just give it a single more texture, and let's say you can give it like marble. Click and create collision material. So I'm just gonna give concrete to our walls and marble to our floor. So just make sure you have selected the collision mesh. You can hide the MLO shell mesh for now. We can just go to our MLO collision shell, go in the tab mode and select all our walls and roof faces. You can just select all and deselect all the bottom faces. Click on assign, and now we have applied our concrete material to our walls and to our roof. And for our floor shell, select the faces, click on marble and assign the marble material. And what we want to do is go to the Sollumz panel and set the room ID to 1. So since we are only having a single room, what we can do is select all the faces of our room, and since this will be a single room, so the ID will be room 1. So we're just gonna give the floor the ID of room 1. Let's say if this was a second room, so we can just select the floor faces and give the collision material the ID of 2. You can do similar things for multiple rooms. So as the room number increases, the room ID also increases with the room. Once we have given the collision material to our shell, collision shell, just hide out the collision, and coming back to our MLO shell, we can create the drawable form now. You can create the drawable format. So just select the drawable tool, go to the create drawable object and click on create drawable. You can just hide this. And now if you have any default texture, you'll see that it has gone all black. So we can just remove the texture, go to the create shader panel and create any texture or any shader. I'm just going to create a default shader. Just click on select the shader which you want to create and click on create shader material. We can go to then our shading tab and select the texture. We can just go to a folder over here. I'm just going to give it a marble, or let's say we can give it a tile. Open image. Let's just create a one more shader, default shader. Select the default shader and let's just rename it to floor and rename the first one to walls. For the floor texture, I'm just going to go to the shading tab again and select a new texture. Let's say brick, or we give just a marble texture to it. We have a base color. Go back to the edit mode. Just select the flow faces and give it a floor material. So now we have our floor material assigned to our floors and the wall materials assigned to our walls and our roof. Now we can just UV unwrap it, or you can just edit the UVs. Go back to the edit mode. For now we have our floor selected, so just press U and unwrap it. And then we can do similar things for our floors and walls and our roofs. So we can just select our roof, press U and unwrap. It's not going to be perfect, but if you want to edit the UVs, it's better to just learn how to edit the UVs in Blender. Some default tutorials are going to definitely help in creating the shell, since it's just normal creation of models in Blender as usual. So I'm just going to create similar things for our walls. Select all the faces, press U and unwrap. Select these faces, press U and unwrap. These seem to be fine, but let's just do it again. And these two, select U and unwrap. So it's not a very pretty texture, but we can just work with it for now. And now if we can just hide our shell and we'll see that we have our collision. And if we hide our collision, this is our shell. We can just rename it properly again. Sollumz MLO shell and Sollumz MLO collision. Now we have our collision and a shell. We can also embed our textures. So you can either select the create shader panel and set all the textures to embedded. Select another texture and set all the textures to embedded. Or what we can do is go to the texture parameter and select the embedded. Now what we can do is enable our exterior and match if everything is lining up properly once again. Everything is matching up properly, so we can just edit it out and hide everything for our exterior and for our MLO shells. Now coming back to our collision editing for the world collisions, if we just select our, let's say, this collision, the first collision file which we imported, select the bound geometry bound and press period on our numpad, we can see that the collision is located far away from our default 000. So if we just navigate our collisions, this one seems to be right over here. So these are our world collisions. What we can do is to align our exterior, we open our Sollumz panel, go to the collision tool and select our collision and click on center composite. Wait it for a bit, and we can do similar for second collision. Click on center composite. And once both the composites are centered, what we can do is import our YMAP. So just go to general tools, select the YMAP tools and click on import YMAP. And then we can just go to our Sollumz MLO tutorial folder and select the YMAP which we exported earlier. Import YMAP. And now we can see that our exterior is aligned with our world collisions. So if I just hide the collisions, you can see that the shell is right over here. Now we can just make cutouts to our world collisions according to our shell. So if we just hide the panel over here, and we can just go and select our collision model. If you can see, this was our first collision. Undo it. We can just hide our second collision for now. So this is our first collision file. So this is our world bound box. And if you just go to the properties panel over here, select the Sollumz, and if you see the Sollumz type, it is a bound polybox. So we want to convert it to a bound mesh instead of a bound poly. So if you just go back to our Sollumz panel, select the collision tool, select the create bounds option and replace original. And then we can just click on create polygon and make sure the box is selected, and then just create the polygon button. And now if you see, it is converted to a bound poly mesh instead of a bound poly box. I rehide all the older collisions. And now we can just edit and make cutouts to our polygon mesh. So we can just go to the tab mode, edit mode, select our edge and create a loop cut. Make a vertical loop cut, align it to the door. Align it properly. Let's do the loop cut again once. Select and loop cut, make a vertical cut. Make a vertical cut right here, and then we can just align it. Do it for another vertical side. Create a vertical loop cut and align it over here. Make sure it's aligned properly. It seems to be aligned properly. Just move it to a little bit over here. And then we can just create a horizontal loop cut and snap it to the top. And then create another bottom loop cut and snap it to the bottom of the door. Now you can just go to our face selection mode, select the face, right click and delete. and everything seems to be aligned properly. And then we can go back to our edge mode, and this time for our window, select loop cut and slide, make a vertical cut first, align it to right over here. Or maybe we can just select it to right over here, I guess. So you can just align it to, we can go to our wireframe mode, and over here we can align it to the interior over here. Go back to the shading tab, and yes, it's aligned properly now. Make another loop cut and slide, make a vertical cut over here, and then just align it to right over here. And then we can just make horizontal loop cuts, select and snap it to the top. And since we don't have our bottom edge too, select loop cut and slide and create a bottom. Now we have our bottom edge and top edge too. Go back to our face selection mode, select the face and right click delete. So this is our window cut. So we have cut out the first collision, and now what we're going to do is edit our second collision model. So if we just enable our second collision and hide our first collision model, you see that this is a very fine collision part. So we just try to select a door. We have our single door over here, single door collision. You can just straight up right click and delete it. And if we can just select our window, and we can see that our window collision is also separate. So just right click and delete. And we don't need to edit any further, I guess. Or we can just remove these bars too. Just select all the bars or the extra parts, right click and delete. And now everything should be fine. You can just delete this part too. Select and delete. So now we have our final collision edited out, and also our main world collision, which was a bit bigger, also edited out. Now we can just go back to our main MLO shell. And now we can just export our shell and all our changes. So first of all, we're just gonna select our MLO collision, select hierarchy, and select our shell. Then just go to File, Export, CodeWalker XML, and export it in a folder. I'm just gonna create a new folder, name it to Blender Export, and we're gonna export it over here. We can just uncheck the use parent transform and select the selected objects, and then click on Export CodeWalker XML. Once it's done, we can just select our rest of things, which were our exterior, and select oh fuck, I just deleted it. Just undo it. Select our hierarchy for first collision, export CodeWalker XML. Make sure the selected objects are selected and export CodeWalker XML. Select a second collision, export CodeWalker XML, and export. You can also do all the parts at once, but I just like to organize and count if it's just properly exporting each and everything. So just select hierarchy again, export and export CodeWalker XML. And once we are done with it, we can now create our YType. So we just press N, go to our Sollumz tab and select an archetype definition. Click on create new archetype or create YTYP. Rename it to something similar. Let's say Sollumz MLO. And then we can select our shell, Sollumz MLO shell. Make sure base is selected from the drop down menu and click on auto create. And then we can just select our collision, Sollumz MLO collision, drop down and make sure MLO is selected. And then just click on create auto create. And now selecting our Sollumz MLO collision, go to archetype, select our entities, and then we can just select our Sollumz MLO shell. And then just click on add selector objects as entity. We're gonna minimize this entities for now and select our rooms. And now what we want to do is select our collision model and click on create limbo. And if we just enable the show room gizmo, we can see our total extents of the room. So these blue boxes represent the total extents of a room. We can just hide it. And since we only have a single room, we can just click again on create limbo and rename it to main. Go back to our entities panel. Make sure in our rooms tab limbo is selected and click on attached rooms and click this button. So make sure the set to selected button is referenced as limbo. So under the rooms tab, you want to select the limbo and then just click on set to selected. We can now minimize our entities panel, minimize our rooms, and now we can just create a portal for a door and a window. So go to the tab mode, make sure the collision bound is selected or the collision poly is selected. Go to the vertex mode and select 4 of our portal corners. So we're just gonna select this, 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 and this. So make sure to select 4 vertices and then go to our portals tab and click on create portal from verts. And if you just enable the show portal gizmo, you can see that this is a portal. Just disable the show portal gizmo for now. And now what we want to do is set proper room from and room to. So since this is a door portal, it's going to be going from inside of the MLO to our outside. So this is our interior of the MLO and this is our exterior. So it's going to be going from 1 to the 0. So 0 is our exterior and 1 is our room. So we can just select under the rooms our main, which is our first room, and click on room from and set to selected. And then make sure select the room and the limbo and then room 2 and set it to selected as limbo. And then we can create a similar portal for a window. So select 4 vertices again. The order doesn't matter. Click on create portal from verts, show gizmo, and again make sure the main is selected. Set the room from to main and set room 2 to limbo. Now we are done with our portals too. We can just export right now our Y types. You can also select custom time cycles over here, but I'm just gonna set it to default, which is interior gas station. And now we can just click on export ytyp.xml. Just select our Blender export folder and click on export YType. And now if we just go back to our folder, Go to the Blender export folder, and now we have our first collision, our main exterior YDR, our second collision, our MLO YType, our MLO collision, and our MLO shell. So these were all the files which we exported. Now we can just go back to our CodeWalker. Make sure we have our RPF Explorer over here. I'm just going to go to the mods, update, x64, DLC packs, and our tutorial DLC. I've pre-created it. Make sure you know how to create DLCs. You can watch Toby's tutorial. Obviously, he has already taught how to create custom DLCs. And now we can just import whatever we have exported over here. So for me, make sure in order to import, our textures need to be in DDS format. So if we just go to our textures, these are two of my textures which are used in the shell, and these are in JPG formats. So I have my tool to convert textures to DDS format. I'm gonna link this tool below in the description. If you want to use, feel free to use it. Drag it over here and click on start. Wait it for a bit. My textures are a bit bigger. It is around 5 to 6 MBs. You just close the tool. Now these are our textures converted to DDS format. So now we can just select all, and in our DLC folder we can just drag and drop. Wait for a bit, and now we have everything exported over here. So this is our first collision, world collision, which we edited. Let's just go over here. And this was our world collision which we first edited, which was a bigger box. So these are our doors and windows. This is our shell which we edited out. So this is our window cutout and our shell, door cutout and our window cutout. This was our second collision file which we edited. Just locate where it is, over there. And where's the second collision? And this was our collision which we edited over here. So this was a door and a window. Close it out. This was our YType which we created, and this was a collision. This was our MLO collision, and this was our MLO shell. Looks everything fine to me. And now we can just restart our CodeWalker once. In order to prevent any conflicts and refresh all the files, we can just restart CodeWalker to be on a safer side. Make sure mods are enabled and enable your add-on DLC. I don't think I have added it to the DLC list, so let me just quickly add it. Go to our RPF Explorer, mods, update.rpf, common data, and our DLC list. Make sure the edit mode is enabled. I'm just gonna copy it, copy the last line, and it's tutorial. Save, and just restart our CodeWalker again. Go tools. Make sure the mods are enabled and select the add-on DLC which we created, and then enable DLC. And now if we just go back to our original world shell which we found at the first place, this was our original shell. It seems to be loaded for me, but you can just go to our new project, create a new project, click on new, create a YMAP file, and then we can just click on YMAP, new entity, and since our MLO entity name was MLO collision, we can just copy the name and paste it over here. So as you can see, the entity is over here. What we can do is go to the selection mode, move it up, select our entity, which was our exterior, go to the selection, and we can just copy the coordinates over here. Go back to our original YMAP file, Sollumz tool, and paste. And since our shell is rotated, what we can do is select again our entity, our exterior, copy the rotation, go back to our original MLO collision and paste the rotation. Okay, so it seems to be rotated. Portal is inverted over here. Let's rotate it manually. And this seems to be fine. We can just save out our YMAP. So let's say Blender export and save. And what we can do is restart our CodeWalker once again. There seems to be some weird rotation issue, so we can just restart our CodeWalker, enable the DLCs, and then we can just click on open file and open our YMAP. Go to the YMAP, select the entity and go to. So this is our YMAP and now it seems to be aligned properly. So everything is aligned. And now what we can do is, if you just go to the selection mode over here, select the interior instance and just right click on YTYP and add to project. So this is our original YTAP which we created. And as you can see, we have our main limbo, our main room which we created, our first portal, which is our door, and our second portal, which is our window. It's automatically filled. Sollumz has automatically created the YTAPs for us. And we can also set our time cycles if we want to change it. Make sure the portal counts are correct. We have our 2 portals, so everything seems to be proper. Now we can just calculate our extents, calculate flags, and then we can just save our YMAP again. Go to the tools, create manifest generator, click on generate, and then save YMF. Save. And now we can copy our YMAP, our YMF to our stream folder. So this is my server stream folder, which I created a resource for it. Go to the stream folder and paste it. We also need to export our original models which we imported. So we can just close it, close our project, tools, RPF Explorer, go back to our mods, update, x64, DLC packs, tutorial, DLC props, and select everything. And then just drag and drop it over here in our stream folder. So we need to stream everything which we created and edited. So our YMAP file, our YMAP file, our edited collisions, the world collisions which we edited, our main world exterior, our MLO collision Y type or our MLO Y type, our MLO collision, and our MLO shell. And then we can just start the server, launch our FiveM, ensure our resource, and test it out. I'm also gonna enable the mapping tool. And if you just join a localhost, you can just no clip, or actually you can just teleport it over here. Disable the no clip, and it should be around here, I guess. Or where was it? Over here. So yeah, if we see, this is our MLO, and everything seems to work fine. We can go to our first person, try to jump out of our portal. It doesn't seem to work. Let me just test it from outside. And yeah, it works fine. I think the portal is very small. That's why we can't jump out of it. Let's just test our collision with weapons. So collision also seems to work fine. You can just try to change your time. So as you can see, the bed is a little dark and night. This is also due to lack of vertex colors. I actually forgot to cover the vertex colors and the lack of light. So we can fix that too. Let's just quit out, close our server. And one thing which we want to make sure is that we don't have any occlusions. So as you can see, there's this blue box. We can just click on new project. And if you see any occluders like blue or red boxes inside your interior, as you can see over here, we have this blue box. So just select it, select the box, go back to our YMAP or the project window, go to the YMAP, add project, and over here select it and delete. So make sure that there's no occluders around, and then we can just save out our YMAP. So just save our occluder YMAP and make sure do not rename the YMAP files. So the occluder YMAP file name should be exactly similar. Save it out, and we can copy this occluder. We can just copy this occluder YMAP in our stream folder. And if you want to edit our vertex colors, as you can see, coming back to our Blender, I'm just gonna hide my collision. And if you want to edit the vertex colors, we can just go back to our Sollumz, select on general tools, select on vertex painter, and we can just select our vertex color over here. I'm just gonna set it to a random value, and we can just click on paint. And if you want to see the vertex colors, that how it looks, we can just go back to our viewport shading and select the drop down over here and click on Vertex. So as you can see, the vertex is green, and if we change it to something like blue and click on paint again, the vertex color changes to blue. So we can just paint the vertex like this. And if we just export this shell again, it should work fine in the game. And if you want to add lights to our, let's say, MLO, CodeWalker has this new feature to add lights to our YDRs directly. So what we can do is go to our RPF Explorer. Actually, the one is already open. Close it out. Go to our RPF Explorer, select our MLO YDR, and if we just right click and drag over the screen, we can change the time in CodeWalker. So we can just zoom it in a little bit, and if we just click it over here, select the arrow, and if we just click on this light bulb, we have this new light editor. So what we can do is click on create new light. We see this light over here. As you can see, there are three types of lights: spot, point, and a capsule. For this, we can just use our spot, or let's just use point. You can scale it for, let's say, this size. For moving, click on this and move it upwards a little bit. Move it to the left and move it to like this. You can also edit the values over here. So let's say outer angle is 50, inner angle is 10, and we can change the fallout to, let's say, 5, or let's make it even bigger. Let's say 15. So you get this nice diffuse light. Make it at the center. As you can see, it's super bright. Let's keep it over here. It should look fine. The light is actually pretty on spot in CodeWalker. So once you have edited the light, let's say, close the tab and just click on the save button. And we can just save it directly to our stream folder. Let's say our test server data, resources, tutorial, stream, and just select save. I'm just gonna replace the shell, and let's just start us over again. Start up our FiveM, ensure our tutorial resource, ensure our mapping resource, and just connect to our localhost. And now if we just go back to our, I don't even remember where it was. Oh, it should be right over here, I guess. Yeah, it's right over here. Now if we just go in our shell, change the time to, let's say, something like this, we should have a difference. As you can see, it's now brighter. A light source is right over here. Over here, as you can see, there's a bright spot, and we have all the light effects. Right now, the default light flags are only for the night time. So if you want to change the light flags, or let's say you want to keep the light lit up in daytime also, we can just re-import our model. since I didn't really save it in the RPF. So just drag and drop the YDR again. Open the light editor and we can just enable all the times. And if you just enable every checkbox and just save it again. Export the YDR. Let me just now if you just change the time, the light should still be up. It's not really visible, but the light is still on. If we just change the light color, it will be probably more visible. So let's just change the light color to something vague. So we can change the light color to red. Save. Export the YDR. Replace. Now refresh. And once again, this is actually a dev command, which is only available on FiveM on the beta or on the canary, as you can say. The light color didn't change actually, so we're just gonna need to restart it once. Let's just restart a server too. Where did my server go? Just restart the server. So the str request fresh command is actually only available on the canary version of the FiveM, and it's actually only for development purposes. So if you are on, let's say, a release, don't try to use it, please. Where was it? I think it was around over here. Oops. There it is. So as you can see, since we changed the flag, so the light is still up. If we just change the time, as you can see, the light is more visible now. So you can just play around with the lights in the CodeWalker editor. It's on spot, as you can see. As you can see, there's the highlights at the center, and in game, the highlights are also at the center. So yeah, you can just play around with the flags, play around with the different values, let's say intensities, flashness, bone IDs, and different things. And we also have our volume intensities, since we also have our volumetric lights. So you can just play around, and if you want example, you can just export the default or the GTA models and try out what the light configuration which they have. And as you can see, everything is working fine. If you want to add, let's say, doors and everything, it's totally similar. You just do it in CodeWalker as usual. So yeah, that's it for this tutorial. I guess it helped you. I've just taken a general cover over everything. I have not really gone in depth with how the things work with code or how the things work with Blender. So it's probably best to learn Blender first and then move on to the Sollumz. I'll probably just see you another time in the next tutorial.